Hello, everyone. This is Lala, and today I'm finally getting around to reviewing slash recapping the challenge, threats, and new threats. So I didn't do it when it initially finished in December last year, or even January of this year. Honestly, I was just kind of burnt out of the challenge and just burnt out on reality TV in general. But now that season 42 is filming, it kind of revive my interest in the challenge again, and I'm in a place where I'm ready to actually cover the season. So honestly, I feel like the season is very similar to War of the Worlds 1, where obviously it had half newbies, half veterans, and the veterans and the newbies were paired together. So there was that dynamic. And I did like that a lot of the veterans that were cast on the season either didn't have strong relationships with one another or strong allegiances to one another based on prior seasons. And some of them outright didn't know one another. So it created a lot of new dynamics. And I honestly think the group order, especially with the veterans, did help the season out. Since the standouts of the season were the newer, less experienced veterans compared to the ones that usually hog the screen time. I did like that the new vet, i.e., the rookies, were very competitive this season and they could hold their own and they weren't just going to follow the vets, which we've seen in a lot of the newer seasons with this format, i.e., Spies, Lies, and Allies, Ride or Dies, stuff like that. At the same time, I do think the casting of some of the rookies on a personality point of view definitely held it back, especially since so many of them made it to the end, but it was really the veterans who were carrying the entertainment within the second half of the season. So there is that. And I felt the same way about War of the World as well. I think just with seasons like this, you're going to have a lot of newbies that aren't reality TV personalities, so it kind of just harms the product. And obviously, we don't know the legacy of the season because the next season is still filming. Though, just by looking at some of the casting for 42, I don't know how much of the events of the season will stick in the future, especially with the state of the show in general just being the shakiest it's ever been. But overall, it's definitely an enjoyable watch. So they pretty much start the season on the first daily. If you do not count episode zero, and I don't cover them in my other reviews, I'm not going to start that here, despite this being the best episode zero, anyways. So the first daily is Mudball Madness, where you get your balls to put them in a bin and they're attached to their partners, and certain balls are worth more points than others. The first 8 teams to get points each daily will get points, where if you get first, you get 8 points, second, you get 7 points, down to eight place getting 1 point. So that's how it's going to be for the first half of the season. And these accumulated points will be worth something in the second half of the season. Anyways, this technique has been done in several variations over the last several seasons, and it's fine. Adrian gets injured during the daily and has to be pulled to the ambulance, meaning she and Roken have to automatically go into elimination. They're bringing this back after not having last place goes into elimination through all of Era 4, which was very refreshing. Anyways, Johnny and Dee win the daily, and the coin flipped to a male elimination. Rogan and Izzy are sad. They did hook up in episode 0. Johnny talks to Derek about wanting to take out the Brit since there is a UK alliance that Olivia is supposedly running. Again, goes to his usual model where he wants to go against the little guy and is telling people about it. He is suggesting it without outright suggesting it, if that makes sense, and Naya is partnered with Justin, so she's kind of feeling a way about her allies saying her partner's names. It could potentially put her in a weird position. Johnny is picking a fight with Thea about Olivia making an alliance, and this is clearly a result of last season. Derek speaks to Justin about being sent home early twice, since he's assumed weak due to being gay, and he gives Justin a very good pep talk. I do think at this moment Derek is being very genuine. Obviously, either Ben or Justin is going to be voted into elimination, and we learn that the daily winners can save one person. All the vets are planning around this twist, and it pretty much backfires on them because people who I think still have a vote. And I think Theo and Izzy were saved here, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyways, Justin is voted into elimination with Derek being one of the people who did vote him in, and Justin and Rogan compete in theory, where they're in a wheel and have to move across the trail, and whomever does it wins. There's a lot of endurance and strategy in this one, but Rogan is very strength based, but he pretty much tricks out of the elimination, hence him losing. The person whose partner loses the elimination will become a hangnail, meaning they don't compete in the next daily and they are an option for elimination. It was nice to see Rogan briefly since it had been half a decade since he's been on. He immediately cheated on his relationship with Izzy, despite him claiming that he was broken up at the time, but he flamed out despite having one of the bigger personalities. It is good that he's in the casting pool again, though his flaws as a player that was always there became very clear now, though it looked like the aftermath of him and Izzy's going to be on eggs on the beach UK and not on another trans season, which sucks. So after each elimination, there will be a partner switch based on the performances of the daily. So the better performers got first choice. Not recapping new pairs in this review is just going to be tedious and really it's pointless. Also, the elimination winner gets 2 points as well on the board, the overall scoreboard. D and Bananas are getting close. Adrian is still injured, and Blue and Marco agreed to work together since they were on Big Brother 25 together. So pretty much Will is trying to be single now. And we do learn that he and Dee hooked up in the hotel or sequester before the season. But it got shut down as they got into the house. There is a Tarzan, i.e. Jeremy, and Jane, i.e. Lekadi, and Sydney alliance going on. And honestly, it is a weird ass name. The daily is side by side where they have to look at the code and numbers under the cars driving over them to solve some of the puzzle. I don't really care for the daily. Naya is hiding her injury that she got from day one, and we're still getting CT Pro tips this season, though it sucked even last season. Trevor has to go to elimination since it's a girls' thing. Justin and Derek finally have their talk, and Justin is rightfully upset, but Derek just doesn't give a fuck, so it doesn't really go well. Not long after that, Derek picks a fight with Leonardo due to the former taking his drink while he is paying for drinks and assumed that it was a 2-for-1 situation. And Leo really just doesn't give a fuck. So, Will is salty as fuck over Bananas and D getting phones. So he starts crashing out on the bus. Apparently, he and Gabe argued on the bus right before this, but obviously they didn't show it. He's punching seats and he continues crashing out when they enter the house to the point where he injures his hand after punching the wall. And a bunch of people are trying to hold him back. Dee really just doesn't give a fuck. Based on our history as Wendell and Austin, that's consistent. And well, it's now breaking down in tears. It's just like, dude, what the fuck? Anyway, some of the UK women are seen as options, i.e., Adrian and Taylor, and many know that the house doesn't really talk to anyone else, or that side of the house doesn't talk to anyone else. So Taylor is voted into elimination, and she and Blue compete in laser focus, but they have to hit a laser beam. The offense has to get it, and the defense has to block it, and their hands are tied in front of them. I do like the elimination a lot, but Taylor does beat Blue here. Blue seemed a lot more authentic here than she was in Big Brother 2025, but she is obviously putting on a black suit and an act there, or just being very cringy, but you can tell that's just due to her being a social media influencer. I didn't mind her this season, but it wouldn't matter me either way if she is on another season or she never comes back. Raya's injury is getting worse and worse, so she has to get an MRI. Gabe isn't happy since his partner's getting injured makes his chances higher to go into elimination, and he rants about it to a few of the rookie men. It gets around the house to the point where Naya is overhearing it. She breaks down to some of the women and then confronts him after the debrief of Derek's birthday, where she mentions that how dare he size her up when he's a rookie and she could throw this to make it a guy's day. Talks about being a two-time finalist, which is a lie. He's only been to one final. And that two-time finalist lie was just a stupid justification to justify her spot on All Stars 3. So at time they're claiming that she was a one-time finalist when she didn't make it to the final yet. But that's besides the point. And she also mentions that he's never been in the top the entire season. Cedric is pretending to not know how to swim despite being a mariner, since he's playing dumb as a strategy. I'll get more into that later on in the season. The daily is water tower, where they have to climb a large tower block in the water or above the water, jump into it, swim beneath, and then solve a puzzle. It's a decent enough daily, and due to Naya not being able to compete, she and Gabe are automatically last, and she is automatically going into elimination. I think they did this because they knew they were going to DQ her anyways, but they didn't want to screw up the production schedule by booting another woman unnecessarily. And Olivia and Justin do end up winning the thing. Olivia is very insecure about her skills as a challenger, and this has been a consistent theme about her since Battle for a New Champion. But the vet woman wants to send in America, since it will make Bananas a hangnail. At this point in the episode, there's really not much going on, since all the spotting doesn't matter at all. Okay, so Gabriel and Naya make up, but it really doesn't matter at this point. Bananas makes a shot about everyone targeting him via America through Olivia's allies, and the elimination is, of course, not happening, since they DQ Naya and Gabe is hanging out now. There's not much to say about Naya this season. She got injured during the first day due to production not letting them change into proper clothes and shoes from the plane to do the hike. She tried hiding her injury and she was caught. She did mention that she's retiring from the show, and I do think it's a good choice, since she's clearly not into it anymore. Everyone is talking about Bananas mentioning how there was a challenge, and the sides are split between him and Olivia essentially. The daily is a maze where they have to go through a giant maze to do a puzzle with different levels of difficulty. Watching people run and do a bunch of puzzles is not my idea of fun TV. Michaela and Ben do win the daily, and Bananas and Nika get last because Bananas decided to erase all of the work to start over late in the daily, and it's a guy's day, so he's for sure going in. Of course, the UK Alliance is happy with the daily results, and there's a lot of discussion about just throwing Gabe in, who's the hang now. So there's not much for the daily winners to really do, anyways. Gabe is voted in like except expected, and the elimination is put him back, where there is an offense and a defense with them being attached to the wall. Offense has to grab a coin and put it in a basket, and the defense pulls a rope that's attached to the offense to hold them back. I do like the elimination, though it's mainly about the size of the opponent, but Bananas does lose to Gabe. Once they air Banana saying, "Challenge!" like War of the Worlds 2, it's clear that he's getting eliminated soon after, which happened there too. Him and Olivia was not a feud that I was very interested in, so I'm glad it ended here and the newer slash younger vets could carry the show on their own, especially when you can tell Bananas is doing a lot of his antics to get screen time, but he did kickstart the season, which I do appreciate, and gracefully left. Obviously, the new threats feel very confident about the result of the last elimination and want to continue the momentum. But it's also clear that to the women, sorry, but it's also clear that the women that Bananas worked with prior to him going home are going to stick together through the season. They come back from the elimination, and Carmaria has to leave since she just got the news that her mother is dying. So she does the right thing and leaves the game. Obviously, the most unnotable season, or one of the most unnotable seasons that Carmaria ever did, as she left very early, didn't perform well in the dailies, but her mind was clearly elsewhere as she was able to spend the final month of her mother's life with her. That she wouldn't have done had she stayed, and she would have ultimately regretted it had she stayed and missed that time. So, yeah, so obviously, Cara Maria leaving messed with production schedule. So they had to bring a female vet that they're essentially trying to avoid with the whole Maya situation. And that female vet is drowning. The daily is Dirt Baller, where they have to dig a bunch of poles to carry at 500 feet to create a field goal and to kick a football in it. I actually didn't mind the daily, but we do have Michaela and Jake winning. It's the second one in a row for Michaela, and Derek and Dee getting last place in the daily. So they're automatically going in. Derek, of course, wants to go against a new threat, and it is a male slave, forgot to mention that early. And he's pushing Jeremy Well. What the fuck? Dumb choice on his end, but he claims he wants to make a move, big move, so whatever. Ashley does not like this idea, since she'll be a target hanging out if he pitches, as Derek pitches this to her, since her partner is Jeremy at this point. Ashley continues to have a meltdown outside because she is ranting to Theo, Olivia, and suggests for herself to be the hangout as she doesn't give a shit about beating any of the other women. I think she did this because Ben is an easier beat for Derek, and she was partnered with Ben this episode. Anyways, this gets around the entire house, so the UK side come up with another plan. So a lot is going on here. And he's exposed for playing both sides with burning her votes. The Tarzan Jane alliance failed to recruit Gabe, who burns their votes, and it's essentially a tie between Ben and Jeremy. It becomes a tie again, where all TJ does is flip a coin. What a lame tiebreaker compared to past seasons, but it's with Ben going in. The elimination is Him Collider, where it is Hall Brawl in free agents, but they have a football essentially. It really isn't close as Derek demolishes Ben, where Olivia becomes a hangnail. So Ben was a weird casting choice since he never came from a show as a wrestling commentator and didn't have any connections. Him being the only male boot from the season was booted early and before the halfway point wasn't a shock and will most likely have him stay as a one season wonder. Though as a person, I do think he's cool, but it just didn't translate well to TV. The rookies agree to not go against one another, though veteran women are talking about how floppy Anissa is, but more in favor of Olivia. The daily is Ruins My Life, where they have to swim to a swinging ladder to grab puzzle pieces, swim back, and make a puzzle. CT does really poorly in the daily, causing Kim and Nika to get last, though she did it all on her own, and he's claiming to be traumatized by the daily last season that sent him to the hospital. A bunch of people think this is shady as hell. The daily itself is fine enough, though it's the typical obstacle towards puzzle daily, and Sydney and Leo win the daily. Olivia pretty much knows that she is going in, and the rookies mention that they are going to say Izzy's name as a decoy, and but to not, they're pretty much agreeing to not tell the veterans who their true target is. Izzy doesn't like this plan, since she knows the rookie women don't really like her. Jeremy's pissed off that his ally is going to elimination and is talking about it with Cedric and Turbo. For some reason, Turbo is so upset, so he confronts CT about it, but he does not like being confronted back. And CT is pretty much like, you could have talked to me about this in private, not in front of two rookies. So the two of them are going back and forth about Lekka being screwed over, where while everyone else is watching them fight and laughing about it, I don't even think Turbo realizes how manipulated he was by the other rookies in this element. He calls CT a pussy chicken several times. That saying is so tired at this point. And how CT shouldn't come if he's not fit. And CT will come whatever the fuck he wants. And Turbo calls it a lazy fat ass. Izzy decides to warn Olivia about the plan since she feels like she owes Olivia, but Lekka would prefer to face Izzy in elimination since she should have been last. Well, oh well. Olivia is talking about how close she is to Anissa, so pretty they're rolling this up for something. Olivia decides to speak to Leo about this information, and he clearly knows that Izzy read it out the plan. Leonardo goes on yet another long ass speech, but Anissa is nominated, and Leo completely steamrolls over his partner Izzy. So Olivia is the one facing elimination. Izzy then gets cornered by a bunch of the rookie guys and is pissed off about how everything she did backfired and she's just a mess. At a time, it's the elimination, which is endurance battle, as you have to run over a treadmill to press a button and to do without passing out. It is a good elimination, though it is exhausting, but like a guesses out, causing Olivia to win. I remember seeing clips of Lekka when the cast was announced, and she was such a big personality from her old show when it comes to the clips that were being circulated, but it didn't appear here. She was in that Tarzan and Jane Alliance got skewed due to CT performing poorly in the daily. At the same time, she wasn't a notable personality herself, despite being a strong performer, but she was almost cast for a 42, so that says something, I guess. Of course, Olivia and her side of the house is cocky as hell after the elimination results, and Leonardo really doesn't care that his plan backfired, but he's going to continue making moves. Well, and Annie are getting cozy with one another, so that's something to look forward to. The daily is Drive Me Crazy, where they have to race around while their partner does a bunch of puzzles. There are five puzzles, and they have 5 minutes to complete each of them, and a bunch of other stuff. The daily would have been fine to watch if it wasn't so long and repetitive. Nani and Leo win the daily. Taylor and Jeremy are in last, and because it's a women's elimination, Taylor is going into elimination. Loki's tell Taylor that they're going to support her in whomever she wants to go in. Everyone knows that a rookie female is going in, and Sydney D in America, with Michaela's help, is planning on using Janae as a scapegoat name while actually throwing Izzy into the elimination. Pretty much the house is split at this point, but it's not based on bet any threats. Nani stays in Will's bed, and the two of them do end up hooking up, or they start before the cameras come in, but they do decide to go all the way. Izzy's voted into elimination with Chuck's half of the house. The elimination is pick it up again, where they throw a ball through the nets, grab bricks, and stacking before the ball hits the sand, and I do like this elimination. Anyways, Taylor wins, causing Izzy to go home. Izzy started well with the rookie Rogan hookup being the best woman in episode 0, but she kind of flamed out throughout the latter portion of the season. She also did play poorly with the whole Olivia thing and the rookies turning on her, but I'm not shocked she's one of the women from the season who are rookies that did end up coming back, since she was kind of a slight train wreck at the end there. So, yeah. Olivia's side of the house knows that they lost the recent battle and are starting to lose the war, and everyone is planning on who they want to pair up with for the rest of the season. And they announced the mid-season twist after Izzy's elimination. Turbo is salty for Derek nominating him in the last vote, so it was a vote against D since it was a woman elimination. And Derek doesn't give a shit about this at all, since Turbo's tried to shame him for trying to take out his biggest threat so he could have a better chance at the final. Well, Turbo considers it pussy chicken. Ugh, so annoying. So pretty much Theo's had a knee injury over the last few weeks and is trying to hide it, and all the women do not want to be CT's partner, since they all see him as a liability. The daily is Cyclone, where they're on a 30-foot container where they have to move blocks from the bottom to the top while the container is hovering over the water. I actually really do like this daily. There's a Justice for Aleka chat that's obnoxious as hell, since CT can climb so well now. And the result of this daily is that Sydney and Jeremy won, though it's mainly Jeremy who did all the work, and Michaela and CT are last, which she intentionally threw. So CT is going into elimination. Dee is planning with her allies on how to get a decent partner since she has no points and wants CT out. But it seems like the entire house is fine with sending Derek in. Anyways, the new threat men are making fun of Olivia wanting them all to choose her, and she does overhear, which turns into a crying fit for her, yet again showing the insecurities that she has regarding her being a good challenger. So Derek is easily nominated to go into elimination with CT, and the elimination is pole wrestle, which is self-explanatory as it is a challenge staple. Clearly, Derek has no chance as CT easily wins here. Derek came off as a lot more unlikable this season, with the Justin situation in the first episode, lashing out at Leo over the drinks and definitely thinking that he shouldn't be touched at all. Definitely saw signs of Battle of the Seasons 2012 vibes from him this season, but he wasn't boring like he was on most seasons. I wouldn't care if he comes back or not, so it is what it is. Cass knows that there's a mid-season twist, and the rookie women know that most of the vet men are shitty, while the vet women know that they haven't made with the rookie men. Will and Nanny are hooking up still, and we have Anissa and Ashley arguing with one another because Anissa believes in herself and Ashley thinks that she's delusional. They separate and hear Ashley talking shit about her, so Anissa confronts her again. Ashley mentions that neither one of them can beat these rookies. Anissa tells Ashley that she's not about it. Ashley says she is ready for it. Anissa says don't play with her. Her Ashley wants to play with her all day. So there's so much that was edited out about this where both of them took some really personal shots at one another, and we didn't even see like a third of it, according to the cast. We briefly see Turbo making a deal with Cedric about them and Jeremy going to the final together, which will be important later. The daily is the mini final, and whomever does the best in the top 8 of the men and the women, they'll get twice the points. I'm not going to recap, sorry, everyone who's in the top 8 per general will get twice the points. I'm not going to recap any of it because a group of people cheated and there weren't enough cameras to catch the damn cheating. So everyone was penalized and the mini final was pointless. Janet is the only honest one about the cheating, but it didn't even do much for her. Anyways, there was a mid-season dinner where everyone is giving each other cheers, but Will decides to use this moment to put the cat on blast for cheating, and it's really ruining the mood, especially since he doesn't want to do formalities at the moment, and really he did the best out of the rookie men, and he was already in the lead, so that's why he's mad. Seemingly an entire day later, Will is still complaining about what happened. Nanny is telling him to get over it since it's a challenge, and they're arguing about this. The partners for the second half of the game are Michaela and Cedric, Jeremy and Aviv, Olivia and Will, Sydney and Turbo, Anissa and Jake, Adrian and Theo, Justin and Nani, Leo and Ashley, CT and Tay, America and Levi, Dee and Derek, and Jarnay and Gabe. Gabe does not like that he is paired with Jarnay, and he's claiming that he deserves more respect, and people don't speak well of her in the house. Everyone else is happy with the partners that they got, though there's talk from the upstairs alliance about sending in Theo and Adrian to elimination. Fanny tells Ashley that she needs to give Anissa space and to let things cool down, as the two women are not speaking to one another. The daily is fast thinking, as it is a trivia daily with stair climbers above the water, and they can't hold their hands on the staircase. Met at best daily, but we've seen this so many times. Michaela and Cedric win the daily, and CT and Taylor are going to elimination. So the majority wants to keep Gabe and Johnny for an easy late season elimination fodder when they have to go into the elimination. So Michaela pushes for Thea and Adrian to be voted in. Olivia wants Derek and Dee out since Derek's on no one's side, and then we move on to Anissa complaining about no one having her back about the Ashley situation. They enter the house from the club, and Anissa essentially picks a fight with Nani about the situation. Again, as they're talking about it in the washroom, Nani's tired of being in the middle, and they just start going at it. Ashley thinks that Nani is being hostile. Nani is tired of Anissa making everything into an issue and wanting to create problems for her, where this fight causes Anissa to eventually move rooms. Ashley tells Leonardo that he has to vote against his friend Jake. This won't be the final time this is done. And TJ introduces the stake the claim twist, where the person claims a partner before the vote. The person they are stealing from has to compete during the nomination ceremony. If the staker loses, they and the partner go directly into elimination. Adrian and Leo are friends, which we never saw, but he follows his partner's wishes. Adrian confronts him about his shadiest vote. He does a poor job of explaining and defending himself, and honestly, it's a nothing burger. Bustin' Balls is the elimination where the blindfolded person puts the ball in a shooting machine blindfolded while their partner directs them. Not the most interesting, in my opinion, but Thea and Adrian do win over CT and Taylor. This is definitely one of CT's weaker seasons where he was clearly very out of shape, and due to his age, he couldn't lose the weight quick enough in the season like usual. And there were many poor performances here. There was the fight with Turbo and the whole Lecca situation, but not a good look. There's nothing to say about Taylor. She was not on the show when she wasn't going to elimination that episode, and she barely got time in those episodes even. Her making it past the halfway point and not being invited to the reunion says it all. Trump is talking about how connected he is in the house compared to his partner, Janae, and the house is talking about the new stake to claim twist. The daily is band together, where they have to walk the pipe to get the flag within it, and then tie their station together with ropes and whatever. It's a pretty decent daily. Dee and Derek end up winning the daily, and Eve and Jeremy are going into elimination due to getting last place. It seems like the plan yet again is to throw in Theo and Adrian, though Aviv and Jeremy want Jake and Anissa at this point. The majority know that Turbo and City are burning their vote, and both sides want them as a serious number for the special vote. Gabe is acting weird towards Johnny at a house party, and it seems like there's talk of him sticking a claim. And Thea knows that planting that seed in his head is the way to go, so he and Adrian can avoid going into elimination. Johnny speaks to her partner about Theo speaking to her about a pitch to vote Leo and Ashley, since the other side is getting desperate, and Gabe is completely closed off since it's from his quote unquote supposed alliance. Gabe reports this to the UK people, and they confront Janae, who completely denies it. Gabe claims that she is lying about everything and she needs to stop pulling stuff out of the air. He then speaks to Jake and Theo, and he is gassed to stake a claim. Gabe stakes a claim on Justin to take Nanny. The house is pissed off since he was safe this vote and end up using it against him. Theo and Michaela argue a bit at the ceremony. Nanny is not happy and it's a complete mess. Theo is taking on several people at this point, and Turbo snaps at him since Theo calls everyone a pussy and he's a hit dog calling. So Janae and Gabe are going into elimination since he lost to Justin. The elimination is pull it together, which is a rock climbing challenge. The women have to climb up to get the pegs, and the men use the pegs to climb up the wall. Aviv and Jeremy obviously win since this is obviously in there, especially in Jeremy's wheelhouse, causing Janae and Gabe to be eliminated. Gabe was a random casting choice as he was a wrestler with no TV experience, but he definitely was a mess with his lack of social awareness and bluntness at times that did cause for some good television, especially since he was not competing well. Johnny came in as a last minute addition after Cara had to leave, and you can tell that she was out of her depth due to missing the first few weeks, and people still denying her as a competitor, since All Stars was different than the flagship. Turbo's freakout is talked about amongst the house, and Lyra is getting screen time, so I was worried about that at the beginning of the episode. But he's speaking to Derek, which I guess in that case it was a warning sign. Anyways, the daily is Running Man, where they have to go through containers with keys, untie the rope to get to the car, and dismantle the car to get some sort of pad, and running the pad to the starting point to put in some sort of bin. Will and Olivia are not working well together during the challenge, which will be a theme throughout the next few episodes. And Michaela threatens to punch Olivia in the face because Olivia was tired of Michaela trashing Theo as she was accusing him of cheating. So there was that, and Michaela was definitely out of line for that. Aviv and Yermi win the daily, and Derek and Dee get last. So they're going into elimination. Michaela and Olivia talk about the incident to their peers, but when you win and lose dailies, it causes less votes in the deliberation. And when you have a split house like this, it definitely matters. So things are pretty close at the moment. Seems like everyone at this point knows that it will be a 5-3 vote, with most likely Theo and Adrian going in again, though there's some worry that they'll stake a claim, but that's a red herring. They try to make it look like the UK side cuts away Leo, but it's just not happening. Things went exactly as predicted, with Theo and Adrian being nominated for elimination in a 5-3 vote. Speaking of the elimination, it is a pillow fight on a poll called Bad Dreams, where Theo wins all 5 rounds, Dee wins all 5 rounds, and Theo breaks the tie as they coin flip and it went to the men. Cuts for him and Adrian to stay and Derek and Dee to lose. Turbo and Theo are then arguing at the end of the elimination. Turbo has no winner. Everybody's a pussy. He's a bitch. Yada yada yada, and that is that. She really wasn't interesting on the season, with the romance with Johnny and Will, and she remained a gamebot like she was on Survivor with the Tyson and Jane alliance. So the luster from Survivor kind of wore off, and she wasn't even competing well. So she still had that alpha attitude about her. Derek shouldn't have been on the season because not only is he not the competitor he once was and didn't bring anything else, but he was injured this season due to what happened last season. So it was just ridiculous. People don't see why Theo is bragging over knocking out a crippled Derek, and we see some video calls like Olivia calling Ryan, Buey calling his wife. Sorry, they weren't married at the time. Buey calling Cam, etc. There's more discussion between Will and Olivia as a partnership, which we will see more of. The daily is Haystack Heist, which has them going to hay bales to get locks, stack the hay to get the keys to unlock the chest. This daily was not fun to watch, but y'all know I don't really pay much attention to the dailies anyways. Manny and Justin win the daily, and you and America get last, so they're going to the elimination. We're seeing some cracks of Sydney and Trevor not getting along, though we never saw a whole lot of it on the episodes even after this. Will is still complaining about Olivia. Michaela interrupts Cedric and Will's conversation to warn them about Aviv and Yermi. We will see this grow in later episodes, and Michaela is planting a lot of seeds. Jake has a conversation again with Leonardo about how he needs to flip. This has happened for 3 episodes straight, and we know how this is going to go. Jeremy talks to Cedric about their final deal. We will eventually see this unravel since they and Will are the top guys, and Cedric really isn't interested, though of course he's pretending to be so to his face. Olivia is also complaining about Will, and you can tell that they're filling the episodes around this time because not a whole lot's happening during this mid portion of the second half of the season. The vote goes how you think it's going to go, with Theo and Adrian being voted in yet again. The elimination is think alike, where they have to solve one another's puzzles as it is spinning in a circular motion. I didn't care for the elimination and I was boring to watch, but Theo and Adrian do beat Lior and America in the elimination. At this point, you can tell that Lior is here for the paycheck, but even he commented on how poorly he's been doing in the competitions this time around. I only remember him seeing on Izzy in that one deliberation. America on the show was an under the radar presence who was inoffensive and talked about being a fan of the show. But there was so much online chatter about her getting too frisky with alcohol once. and it was boring to watch that online chatter, but she bailed on the reunion partially due to this, so she's just so neutral to me all around. I don't get the discourse in a positive or a negative way. They talk about the votes in the nomination ceremony or that's coming up, as both sides essentially realize that not winning or losing is more beneficial in controlling the game than winning or losing. And we see that Will and Annie are still going strong. The same conversation with Leonardo and Jake are happening again, and it's just old at this point. The daily is Rune Race, where they have to run tether to your partner to remember codes to complete an equation, and then they have to get their pieces in the bottom of the ocean and then complete the puzzle. I didn't care for the daily at all, but Michaela and Cedric win the daily, and Ashley and Leo get last, so they're going into elimination. Both sides of the house are tied in the votes due to the majority having a daily winner and a loser who can't vote. There is some filler happening that I don't care to recap. Adrian makes a pitch to Yermi and leaves that doesn't go well, but maybe it's something that they should have considered based on what happens in a few episodes from now. So the votes are split between Theo and Adrian and Bro and Zinni. They hinted at his body not handling the cold well, so that'll be important for the future. And it ended up being a tie, but the coin is flipped and Turbo and Sydney is going into elimination. Theo threatened Nani that Turbo and Sydney will go in if she doesn't vote in Aviva near me, and it ended up happening. Nani flips out on him, but she ends up in a crying fit. Anyways, Wake Me Up is the elimination where one person has to run to get one cannonball to put on a wheel. Lifting the partner up will get puzzle pieces. Once everything is collected, they solve the puzzle. I don't give a crap about this elimination, but Turbo and Sydney win over Ashley and Leonardo. It was nice to see Ashley on the flagship season, on the flagship series, my bad, after a few years and for her to have a relatively deep run here. It was somewhat interesting seeing her try to make friends this time around, and while she didn't have standouts competitively, she had a few meltdowns and fights, which is to be expected. And it's crazy that her issues with Anissa carried from All Stars rivals to this season. Leonardo was definitely an interesting person compared to a lot of the men who are more muted personalities regarding the rookie men. He has this aloofness about him that gets him in a lot of mess, but he isn't putting on and generally has this I don't give a fuck attitude about him that is refreshing. I'm looking forward to what he will do on this upcoming season. Turbo is still sick, and Nisa is still not over the Ashley situation, but the UK Alliance know that they're in danger if they don't win. And the majority notice that they can't have a pair win the daily and lose the daily as well. There are some phone calls going around where Jenna calls Nanny, but we move on to the daily, which is called Dirty Drifter, where they have to unbuckle Vans that is chained up, my bad, and then connect the van to a ring where the car moves and it's clean. I actually really do like the daily, as it is simple and effective, but not a bore to watch on TV. Because Theo cannot help but cheat during the daily, after being told several times not to, he and Adrian are last and are sent right to elimination. And Will and Olivia win the daily. Essentially, Jake and Anissa are dead in their right, and they don't care that it is Jake's birthday. I mean, the house doesn't care. People are noticing Aviv being nice to Theo. It's called a social game and being nice. But it's clear that she and Yermi were becoming targets anyways, which they knew about beforehand. But Michaela and Cedric are complaining about this. Anissa speaks to Nani, trying to get her to not vote her in, but Nani mentions that Anissa chose her side and she's not voting in people who are aligned to her all season. And Anissa is upset about all of this, but there's nothing she could do. Anissa and Jake are easily nominated, and Evie is hugging Anissa in tears over being nominated, which is rubbing her allies the wrong way too. Loose ends is the elimination where they have to loosen the spool to unload the cable to wrap it around their contact point, plug it in, and do it for all three of them. This was a boring as hell elimination, and they did it much better last season. But Theo and Adrian win their fourth elimination, causing for Anissa and Jake to be eliminated. This was definitely a more dramatic season for Anissa as she got into several arguments and she was attempting to play both sides, but she wasn't in the majority this time. There was some ickiness about her and Will that was revealed post season, and the messiness with Nanny and Ashley was a lot worse than what was shown. Jake made it very far in the season, but was relatively unnotable throughout the season from a competitive and a personality point of view, so I'm not shocked that he didn't get the call for 42. Leo and Adrian feel good for sending home 8 people, and Nanny is exhausted from the season. Jeremy is being deceived by Cedric about their handshake deal, but we move on to the daily, which is Dark Mine, where they go into a mine and have to look at a game board with numbers that will be called out, and they have to light the box of matches. I found this to be a pretty boring daily, and Michaela rolls her ankle again. I forgot to mention that her ankle has been an issue over the last few dailies to this point. Sydney and Turbo win the daily, and Michaela and Cedric get last in the daily, so they're going straight into elimination. Michaela tells Nanny that they know what time it is, target Aviv and Yermi, who are expecting a high vote, but that isn't happening. Michaela continues this campaign to Theo, Adrian, and Olivia, where of course they are happy about it since it saves them. Nanny tells Aviv that she's voting her in since it's the end portion of the season and there are no more allies, but this gets around to the house. It is the nomination ceremony, and before this vote even happened, Yermi stakes a claim on Olivia. Obviously, most of the house does not react to it well at all. Aviv is pretending to not know at this point, and this forces Will to compete against him since he stakes his claim on Olivia, and yeah, Will has to fight for his partnership. Nani lashes out at Aviv for telling her Olivia is snapping at Yermi, though ironically, Olivia probably just when thought this move, and Yermi essentially dog walks Will in the stake challenge. While this is happening, Aviv is holding her own against the others, and Will comes back feeling betrayed, since Nani telling Aviv this led to this happening. Will and Aviv are now partners, with Olivia and Naomi being partners. Due to this, the vote turns to Aviv and Will, with Will snapping because Justin and Nani are not defending him. We learn that Nani and Thea made a deal off camera where they would not nominate one another, and she swore on her mother's grave on this, so Will feels even more of a sting. The showmatch completely blows up in flames in front of everyone. The votes are tied between Aviv and Will and Nani and Justin, and it's tied twice, so it's a coin flip with Will and Aviv going in. And the couple are still yelling at one another. The elimination is tight quarters where they have to solve puzzles in airline toilets, and this is lame as hell. But Cedric and Michaela do end up winning over Aviv and Will. While Aviv herself is not interesting, her trajectory on the show is. After coming back last season and almost making it to the end, she does the same thing after not knowing most of the people this season or working with them. But I do think she was more engaging this season than last season in comparison. Out of the male rookies, Will is clearly the star of the show. He got in the most drama with people, had some heavy meltdowns, and was one of the few who was actually hooking up. He felt like someone who would be cast in the older eras, and I'm not shocked that he's coming back. So I am looking forward to him in the future, even if he has some red flags as a person. Lanny and Justin read Will's angry note towards them, and they're blaming his BFF Cedric, who should have told him that Yemi was going to stake a claim. Olivia and Jeremy are somewhat optimistic but nervous about their new partnership, but there are a lot of deflecting fingers going around regarding the situation. The cast goes out to the bar, and Michaela wonders why the energy is off since the nominations, where she mentions that everyone was going to vote in Aviv and Jeremy, acting like they are not the masterminds of it. Trevor is confused as to why Sydney cares so much. She thinks he's just of a friendship with Jeremy, and the initial conversation was between Michaela, Sydney, S- and Jeremy. Cedric wasn't really saying anything, but pretty much Michaela admits to Jeremy that they were offered him, and Nanny interjects since she is tired of Michaela lying. Both of them are playing all sorts of semantics regarding the situation as they are arguing. Tia is getting involved for some reason, and Nanny is furious. Cedric pipes in since he mentions that it was her fault that Will went in and she screwed him over. And both Michaela and Cedric mentioned that she shouldn't have said anything to Aviv, but she mentions that that's just her. This is a Big Brother or Survivor, whatever. Cedric is claiming that he had no idea that Will was going in, and Nanny mentions he should have told Will. A bunch of deflection is happening, and it's simply that Spider-Man gif that is infamous on the internet. Olivia pipes in to make fun of Cedric. Both Jeremy and Sydney are shocked by the news, and people comment in the confessionals about Cedric and Michaela being Bible thumpers but being so deceptive. Cedric's final three was called out by Jeremy, but he does finally fess up to it. The daily is global exchange, where they have to ride the road to look at the maps that has half of the world on it, but the placements of the countries are not correct, and they are connected to their partners while riding the bikes. It's a fun enough daily as I do see it as relatively middle of the road. Trevor and Sydney win the daily, so they're in the final, with Michaela and Cedric getting last, going into elimination for the second time in a row. At this point, Nanny and Justin know that they're getting voted in, since Olivia and Thea are not voting one another to elimination. So the elimination is Balls in 2.0, where both people are playing balls in at the same time. And I do like this variation. But Danny and Justin get washed by Cedric and Michaela. Carson had an interesting start of the season with being underestimated and the Derek situation, but he faded into the background for the rest of the season, though he was a decent competitor. He is back, so it will be interesting to see how his trajectory goes. Manny comes back fresh from her breakup with Casey before filming this and has been the most interesting she has been in season. She was hooking up with Will, getting into several fights, and playing the game a bit more individually than usual, but it caused her to get into a bunch of mess too, which led to an amazing downfall. It is the final, and the pairs are tethered together the entire final. They're going down a kayak for the first checkpoint, and they have to remember the stuff that shows up as they're going down and have to rearrange them on a sign. They then have to walk up a mountain trail. Then the next checkpoint has 10 signals, and they have to move them around for TJ to get them correct. Then after that, they have to do a Sudoku with colors regarding a set of cubes, but the colors can't duplicate in a row or column. Sydney and Tepper are in the lead for the final essentially the entire time. Yeah. And they have to wait for someone else to show up to do the next checkpoint for facing off the treadmills. Theo and Adrian have been last this entire final, and after everyone shows up, the next checkpoint is to swim in the cold water to get a key and to set up their camp. All of the rookies end up doing it, and Theo comes off like an ass with how he's treating everyone. The overnight portion comes in, and TJ shows up to offer them a stake claim twist. Ultimately, no one decides to stake a claim, but part of it was due to them not having the energy and not wanting to piss anyone off at this point. One person has to stand on the log while the other sleeps in the tent, with them switching. Cedric and Michaela's rope end up missing through the night, so they are punished, but the final task is the final essentially. And the one, sorry, the last day is them running up to the top of the mountain to cross the finish line, but there is stuff in between there. There's a cage part of this where they have to answer questions to open a code, but that comes and goes, and another checkpoint ends up being a role placing game. After this round, Olivia and Jeremy end up being last instead of competing for second or first. But despite that, they're able to push through and pass all the other players slash teams. Adrian and Theo end up quitting the final, or essentially pressured to quit by production because they're so far behind. Michaela and Cedric get third, Sydney and Turbo get second, and Olivia and Jeremy get first. Theo was at his most interesting here since War of the Worlds 2, and that fire in him existed. I don't know if it had to do with him being consistently targeted, hence winning many eliminations, but he had to be very creative and brought much needed fire in the season, though the daily performances are just not there anymore, clearly. Adrian had some funny commentary in the confessionals, but when it comes to the house activity, there is not much there. But she does stand out compared to the woman. It will be interesting to see what happens with her in the next season. I am so glad that they were able to get Michaela on a flagship season, and she's definitely one of the stars of the season. She jumped into the strategy of the season from the beginning and carried herself like a multi-season veteran, getting into a fair share of drama and having some fun commentary, even though she was not the most likable person in the season. Cedric was not my first choice from Big Brother 26 to be on the challenge, but I did think he was relatively refreshing and had to be a lot more cutthroat here and dumb himself down. He was one of the better confessionalists, though it got annoying at times, and seeing him with his game exposed will be interesting to watch in the future. Turbo found the right balance between his World of the Worlds 1 and his World of the Worlds 2 slash Ride or Die persona, and I do think it served him well. He had his fair share of drama, but was not overbearing to the fans and the cast, causing him to blend into the background at times. Easily the best performing male vet, though there were times where you can tell that he was creating his own random narrative. I am impressed with Sydney's performance as a competitor, but I would be lying if I said I enjoyed her as a personality, as she was just a conventional gangster and was just generally unlikable. I am interested in seeing what happens to her next season, though. Olivia came in a lot more prepared mentally, physically, not drinking, and you can tell that her demeanor is different compared to especially her last two seasons. But I still don't think of her as the most entertaining person out there. She did hold her own, had several moments, and it was impressive that she ended up winning while pregnant. It was clear that Yermi was casting me as a competitor because the personality is severely lacking. I will say that he is at least active in the politics and strategy of the season compared to others in his archetype. But despite him winning, he still was not cast for the next season. and I think the personality element is the reason why he wasn't priority casting. I do think this is one of the weaker reunions, but let's just get through it. So Devin is hosting the reunion, and they immediately get into and talk about Olivia and Theo having a baby, as she got pregnant about a week into filming the season, and they found out she was pregnant right after the final. So they discussed the final right afterwards. Olivia and Yumi are congratulated as the winners of the season, and all of the finalists have their brief commentary about the final. The rookies are given a lot of props for being tough, but we move on to Johnny talking about how he is the challenge, and a so-called feud with Olivia during the season. He mentions that he gave the most to the show, sacrificing families, marriage, and relationships for the show, and claiming that he doesn't get his props. Honestly, this is just utterly ridiculous. I'm not wasting more time on this. Well, is still insistent on him carrying his pair with Olivia. Gabe has breakdown over the hate he has gotten regarding Journey, and some of the women mentioned that he didn't treat women the best, especially black women, so they're essentially accusing him of misogyny. But he makes up with all of them and takes accountability. Turbo and Sydney's issues are talked about. He got jealous for her getting close and talking to other men in the house, and he deflects it to his culture, and she mentions that she didn't want, sorry, Turbo did not want her to call her boyfriend during the season. They move on to talking about the stake the claim twists. They talk about the first one with Gabe. We have Michaela and Olivia arguing because it's a prime example why people didn't like the Olivia at the season regarding how they manipulated people. Then the second stake claim twist was talked about where Sydney told Jeremy to stake a claim while still insistent on a sense regarding Nanny and Justin, but they are all fine. Cedric and Michaela shystiness, especially regarding state claim stuff, is discussed, and Nanny immediately apologizes to Michaela and Cedric, essentially admitting that she was deflecting and that she thought she lost already, which I'm actually shocked with Nanny taking accountability immediately with this. Olivia and Thea decide to go after Michaela as she's a hater who's obsessed with them. Michaela mentioned that she was not aligned with Amy, so she didn't owe him anything, and Elise knew that they were going to turn on one another, and eventually they call her out for being on a bunch of fan pages and make comments about her. Michaela mentions that Olivia wants a hater to make them relevant, where Olivia let her soldiers do things for her that would get them in trouble. Turbo still thinks Derek is fake, and I don't give a shit about their fight. The reunion falls off at this point, but the first part ends with Turbo and CT arguing about Turbo being a lot shadier this season and doing the stunts where he threw out cards that essentially spelled bitch. It was corny as fuck, to be honest, and I get why CT was annoyed. So, on to part two of the reunion. They try to make it look like CT and Turbo are gonna fight. Obviously, nothing happens. Turbo and Theo is discussed this season, where Theo mentions that Turbo is the biggest actor and pussy in the season since he hid behind honor despite being anything but Turbo's really not taking accountability while doing yet another stuff. Anissa's issues with Ashley and Nani are discussed at this point. Ashley mentions that Anissa was her partner on All Stars 5, which was like 6 to 7 months before filming the season, when both were at their worst shapes possible. And Anissa mentioned that she trained a lot. They are arguing. They both call one another delusional. Ashley mentions that she's not going to magically win when this has when this isn't even the best shape Anissa's been during her 20 seasons and 20 years on the show. Anissa mentions that Ashley talked about her dad who had since passed. Ashley mentioned that Anissa mentioned one of Ashley's stalkers during the fight. So this was the underlying stuff that they didn't edit in the fight that I was referring to earlier. Nani mentions that she and Anissa did not speak much since Ryder dies. Anissa mentioned that she should have had lower expectations that she did for Nani. Nani outs Anissa calling Casey right after filming the season to tell her that Nani hooked up with, well, when Nani was going to tell Casey herself. They won't speak and won't speak. Nani also revealed online after the reunion was filmed, literally right after they filmed, which they didn't air this part, but Anissa hooked up with Well after both were eliminated. Devin mentioned that the producers told her in her ear that they are not to talk about that, but Will made a few comments mentioning that she took advantage of him while being drunk and alluded to SA essentially. Derek's messiness is discussed and he justifies himself about the Justin situation, and the Leah drink situation was brought up briefly. The news threat turning on Izzy is discussed, and she didn't like how people perceived her relationship with Olivia. She didn't get why people cared so much. Izzy's situationship with Broken is also discussed. I don't know if they recorded X on the beach before this reunion or after this, Don't care about the whole Banana City thing, but there's some discussion about being well, they make up. Anyways, we move on to the cheating scandal, and just for like we then have Michaela, Sia, and Olivia talking about how Michaela's threatened to punch Olivia, and Michaela does apologize, and she apologized that day, knowing that it was not good, and she needs to be careful about how she represents herself as a black woman. The final stuff's about how the vets were on their first season, and that's essentially the end of the reunion. And that concludes my thought on the challenge, vets, and new threats. So this was a very surprising season in the fact that I and many others didn't expect to enjoy it as much as we did. It's one of the best seasons within the last 6 to 7 flagship seasons, which says a lot. We had a lot of competitive rookies, an interesting mix of veterans, and a lot of the newer vets making names for themselves and kind of carrying the torch of the show and creating their own dynamics. There was definitely a lot of strategy. We had a split house the entire season, and there was shockingly a lot of drama. The worrying thing about it is it from the looks of 42, a lot of the people who made the season as great as it is aren't cast. So I don't know if they took the right thing from this season where you let the newer vets kind of become the ones who carry the show. It seems like we're kind of reversing things back. And obviously with the Skydance merger, officially taking place after the season filmed. There have been a lot of budget cuts, not just with the production, but the casting. It's moving to Paramount. So the future of the show is shaky enough as it is. If the season that's filming right now is the last season, then it's the last season. And obviously, with that, there wasn't going to be much that we carried through the season. But if the show does continue to have many, many, many more seasons, based on the casting, I don't know if we're going to have a lot of ongoing storylines from the season that will affect future seasons. So there is that. Thank you all for watching. I think I have this definitely in my top 20. Um, Not in the top 10, I don't think. It probably will be. Let me look at my ranking. I do think that over. No, no. It could be my top 10, actually. Depending on where things rank, I could definitely have it in the top 10. If not top 10, top 20, but probably around like 8 to 15, 16. That's where I would probably rank it over. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with more content soon. Take care.